We can soon very easily cause problems with our indirect function, just like any other function, in that if it tries to convert what it sees in a cell or cells if we're concatenating into a cell reference, and that cell reference is not an actual cell reference, then we get an error message. If we use the Sales 2013 indirect errors, you'll see what I mean. If we just replace the start reference there as a letter, you see how we get #ref, because it cannot convert that F into a cell reference. The same happens down here. If we leave the cell empty for our column, we get #ref. Now we do get away with quite high references here that still work as columns, but we can still go high enough for it not to be a column, and we get #ref. The same occurs with the numbers. If the numbers go too high or even negative, we get #ref. So we can deal with these errors on a quite broad basis by using the little clever if error. So we go to each function and just say equals if error. So there's our function. If that function produces an error, then what do I put out? Well, we can simply put out our appropriate little hyphen. I prefer the hyphen to an empty cell because at least we know there's something there. If it's empty, you could inadvertently delete the whole function, and close, and that way we get the little hyphen. And the same for that one. So equals if error. Looking at that whole formula, then let's output our little hyphen again. Now you could go a little bit deeper and actually check to see if it is an isRef option. So we can do that here. So the formula becomes a lot more long-winded, however. Sum if isRef, and what I want to check really is the start range there, so the indirect reference. So we'll copy that. If isRef, so if the starting point is a ref, then we're fine. We can go ahead and carry out the sum function. If not, we'll just put obviously we could be a bit more user-friendly, but we'll put for the moment. So that's isRef indirect close brackets. Don't need that open there, and then that close is the if close. Color coding really makes it a lot easier to track your brackets here. We'll return, and we get because it's not a valid reference. Let's change that to an appropriate number, and then we get the result, which is actually 0 because we're going all the way across to column XX. If we come back to E, then it's 699. So there's two different ways there of dealing with the problem of the ref. Either we just use the if error, so if anything goes wrong, it puts a little hyphen out. In our case, you could put anything out you like. In this case, we're going a little bit more specific and checking to see whether what they've referenced is a valid cell. That way the error can be a bit more appropriate. So not valid ref, and then they can go ahead and put the right thing in. So let's put a negative number in there. It's easier to put a negative number in there than a massive positive number because we'd have to be well past the million mark for it not to be a valid cell reference. So that's dealing with errors with the indirect formula, either the generic if error that we've already seen in action, or isRef to check whether it is a reference before proceeding.